Hi, this is Miss Wright, and I'm going to go over um, a passage from Romeo and Juliet that I think might give us a clue as to the main idea as Shakespeare intended it. Okay, so if you go to page 701 of our text, this is Romeo and Juliet's famous balcony scene. Romeo is speaking, and I'm going to be looking at this term, enmity, which is only used twice in the play. Okay? Romeo says, Alack, there lies more peril in thine eye than 20 of their swords. Look but look thou but sweet, and I am proof against their enmity. Juliet responds, I would not for the world they saw thee here. Romeo goes on to say, I have night's cloak to hide me from their eyes. And but thou love me, let them find me here. My life were better ended by their hate than death prorogued, wanting of thy love. And of course, when he says this line, we cringe a little because it's dramatic irony. He may be just talking, but we know this is a tragedy, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Uh, then we skip to page 774, and if you look, this is the end of the play, and Lord Capulet says, As rich shall Romeo by his lady lie, poor sacrifices to our enmity. And I thought this was particularly important, even though it's very brief. One, because this is Lord Capulet speaking near the end of the play. And he has a moment of recognition here when he says that Romeo and Juliet have been sacrifices to their enmity, sacrifices to their hatred of one another. And it made me think of certain things. So here's something to think about. Was hatred actually a custom or a tradition between these two families? It's difficult for us to know what it would really be like to grow up in an environment where you were born into a culture of animosity. But there are people around the world who experience that. If you think about the conflict many years ago between the Irish and the Catholics in Ireland, people were actually bombing each other, killing each other over religion. Um, if you think about the Israelis and the Palestinians in the Middle East, that is a culture of um, hatred and animosity that has gone on for um, decades and decades and decades. You think about Shakespeare's time. The Protestants and the Catholics did not like each other in Shakespeare's time. When the Catholics came to power, they would try to decimate the Catholics. And when the Catholics came to power, they would do the same. They would burn people at the stake, torture people, all under the um, guise of religion, under the auspices of religion. Um, and so people could be born into a situation where if you were Catholic, you were taught to hate Protestants and believe that they were heretics, or if you were Protestant, you were taught to do the same about Catholics. And it was no mild thing because there were beheadings, hangings, burnings, disemboweling, drawing quarter um, for being on the wrong side of this religious, also slightly political divide. Okay? And that may be what Shakespeare is tapping into here under the guise of these two lovers. He may be doing a bit of social criticism in terms of um, making the audience aware of how fruitless it is to buy into a culture of hatred and animosity as opposed to accepting people as individuals. And I have here, did their parents create an atmosphere where their children could not confide in them when they went against their parents' values and thus leave them no other option but death? How would you support your answer using the text? I have look at Lord Capulet's reaction to Juliet's objection to marrying Paris. Could this prove that Romeo and Juliet were right not to tell their parents of their marriage? How would you support your answer using the text? Here's a piece of the text. Thursday is near. Lay hand on heart. Advise, and you be mine. I'll give you to my friend, and you be not. Hang, beg, starve, die in the streets. For by my soul I'll ne'er acknowledge thee, nor what is mine shall ever do thee good. Trust to it. Bethink you, I'll not be forsworn. So we talked about this before, but I come back again because um, when Juliet asks her father to postpone the wedding or cancel the wedding, she doesn't want to be married at this time to Paris. Of course, we know why. Her father will broach no opposition. He will accept no refusal, and to the point where he threatens to throw his 13-year-old daughter into the streets to starve, to beg, to even die there because she is not in compliance. And so from this we can see it's a very harsh environment that Juliet is growing up in if she dare to question her parents' authority, go against her parents' wishes, perhaps not buy into her parents' animosity towards the other side. Shakespeare gives us just a glimpse of what it might have been like for the parents to find out that Juliet had gone behind their back and married Romeo. The anger here, the severity of the response here gives us just a tip of the iceberg of what it might have been like if the parents found out what was done. All right, so I have the word enmity is only used twice in all of Romeo and Juliet. Let me fix this for you. Good habits. Yet we have to link it to the main idea of the text. Is enmity the ultimate reason why Romeo and Juliet do not survive this tragedy, or is it something beyond their control, like fate, or simply the choices they make? And we will talk about this in class. We'll compare the impact of fate and the impact of their choices on their final outcome. All right, this is my girl, Juliet. Love you. And that was my take on the main idea. One other thing before I go, this line about poor sacrifices to our enmity. In ancient times, people used to actually sacrifice their children to the gods. If you look, even in the Bible, Abraham is asked to sacrifice his son to God, and he's willing to do it. He is ultimately spared from having to do it, but he was willing to do it. And it wasn't an isolated situation. People would believe that under certain circumstances, they might have to sacrifice their children to their gods to honor their gods. And here I wonder, did Montague and Capulet, through their enmity, their hatred, end up sacrificing their only children to the god of hate, to the god of their hatred? Did they love their hatred more than they loved their children? Okay, so that was my take on the main idea in Romeo and Juliet. As always, stay awesome. This video is dedicated to the students in my Period 3 class. You are brilliant, rambunctious, and I love you. Okay? See you back in class. Bye-bye.